We all look for ways to save money, both big and small, but sometimes saving money in the short term can hurt us in the long haul. Take, for instance, your car insurance, and I'm sure you've heard that term, state minimum. What exactly does it mean, and how well are you really protected? Mark Matthews is the owner of MMA Insurance. He's here with some sound advice. Mark, nice to see you once again.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Can we start with an explanation of state minimum? Really, what does that mean?
State minimum, the state of Ohio has a requirement that if you own a car, you have to have a minimum coverage. And the minimum coverage in the state of Ohio is $12,500 per person for bodily injury, $25,000 for the total accident, and then $7,500 for property damage. While it does sound when someone says, "Oh, I'm covered.
I've got that state minimum.
State minimum, I'm
following the
covered."
law.
But the reality is, their obligation is not just to have the coverage. If the accident or damage to the other party is beyond that, they're still responsible. The insurance company meets their obligation. Legally, they're done. And I think some people think, "Oh, state minimum, I'm up. I'm good." Well, no, you've just met the minimum requirement. You haven't actually met your obligation, most likely to the other party if you're at fault in an accident.
Very interesting. And you said at fault, so people don't have to necessarily go to court if there's more, or do they in the long run have to go to court if you only have state minimum and they want to get more from you?
You will go to court.
Will go to court?
The other party will probably retain an attorney. You see them on TV all the time, and they will go after your assets, your future earnings, your retirement. So you're not as safe as you think. I think there's this misnomer that, oh, as long as I get state minimum, I'm done. But you're not.
Okay. Good advice, especially for young people who are looking for ways to, and, obviously keep those bills down. Not just young people, but everybody, really. Another one, and ways that people do it, is they tweak those deductibles so that they, that's where they're going to pay. But in the meantime, they have a lower minimum. So when does that get you in trouble?
Well, the only way you could get in trouble is deductibles. You're assuming a portion of the risk. So as long as you can afford to pay your portion, you're okay. But on the other hand, if you're extending yourself too far out, thinking it'll never happen to you, when it does happen to you, what are you going to do?
When you sit down with someone and you start to talk about their needs, do you look at how long they've been driving and the type of car, all these kinds of things, take into consideration what you're going to offer them as the best?
Absolutely. We'll look at not only their driving record, what they drive, their prior insurance limit. We'll also look at what are we trying to protect? What are your assets that we're trying to make sure that if something goes wrong, you don't lose what you work so hard for. I think it's much more than fixing a fender. Don't think people look deeper to say, uh-oh, yeah, I fixed your car, but now I've got to pay for their medical bills, pain and suffering, lost wages, even if there's a loss of life. And that's really, when you have proper coverage, we'll take care of all those things.
Things that people don't think about, because I'm sure, Mark, you've heard it before, like, it's not going to happen to me.
Everybody believes that, right, till it happens to them. Yes.
What about young drivers? They can be tough to insure. They can be expensive to insure.
They can. If they're on a parent's policy, or I have carriers that will say, hey, you have your own insurance, but we can combine some of the risk with your parents' good driving record to help them out. It's like all of us when we started. You're not an established driver. Statistically, you're more likely to be in an incident, texting, you get distracted a little more, you're not as conservative in your driving habits. But there are solutions, and we're able to do things to help them. But starting out on your own can be a little more expensive than when you're on your parents' policy.
And I know there are other people out there, too, who have maybe a little bit of an extensive record. Either they have a DUI on their record or they have a couple accidents. They feel that they can't find someone to insure them. Can you usually find someone?
I can always find someone. The premium may be more than they're expecting, but many times it's not. If say you have a couple accidents and a speed or incidents like that, if you've got a good insurance score, your rate will be lower than you think. If you call a 1-800 number, you're going to pay this premium amount because there's this perception, that's my only option. But it really isn't. There's many options out there, almost no matter how poorly your driving record is, or especially if it's excellent. If you have an excellent driving record, insurance companies will knock at your door to insure you.
And that's what you help them with, because you don't just cover, and you just don't use one insurance agency. You have many companies that you work with.
Correct. For just car insurance alone, we quote and review the coverages with over a dozen companies alone just for car insurance.
Well, there ought to be something there for somebody.
There's something there.
Mark, thank you. Good lessons, good advice. Nice to see you.
Thank you.